lower your expectations. Remember, that is Team Biden's unofficial slogan. They hope you take it as an admission of helplessness, a simple shrug of the shoulders. Hey, what can you do? These are the cards we've been dealt. When nothing could be further from the truth. They've done this to us, and yet they still continue to get away with it. This is the psyop they're playing on us. They've made it quite clear, especially in recent years, exactly how much they hate traditional patriotic Americans. It's like the Europeans who live off of American economic trade and military assistance, all the while insisting on looking down their nose at us while they stick their hands out for more help. Or the ungrateful teen who needs their uncool parents for everything and resents them for it. That's why I think the DC ruling elite see us. It's not that they hate America, per se. What they hate instead is that they think the wrong types of people are the economic engine of this great nation, and that if only those people can be pushed out of the way, then the left can be the sole beneficiaries of the windfall. Thus, such a self-effacing and unserious nation can look with no alarm at Bill Gates becoming the largest reported private owner of farmland in the U.S., despite his stated desires of wanting the West to be weaned off meat altogether, to instead eat bugs or soy meat replicas or something. Or the fact that former Chinese army officers can buy up land in America, even right next to U.S. military bases in Texas. Or what about the fact that a Toronto-based company, Tricon Residential, can own 30,000 homes in the U.S. with plans to buy 800 new homes every month? Many Wall Street tycoons are investing in similar buy-ups. This not only inflates prices for regular home buyers getting pushed out of the market and therefore making it harder for them to put down roots and accumulate their own wealth, but also entire neighborhoods are being reduced to rental properties owned by foreign landlords with billions in assets. And if you're alarmed by this, as I am, Tricon CEO Gary Berman has news for you. Apparently, young people just don't want to buy homes anymore, he says.
If you asked a lot of millennials, and that tends to be our primary resident, they would probably tell you that they don't necessarily desire to own a home or to own a car. And they've grown up in the sharing economy, and for what's important to them is lifestyle, right? And so if they can move into this, what we call a turnkey or hotel-ready home, and have a low-maintenance lifestyle, that's very compelling for them.
That is the smarmy argument made by a huckster who hopes your only perception of younger generations are the negative headlines about them. Yes, we all know millennials have their problems, but this guy's argument is quite literally insane. Call me cynical, but that guy is not lamenting the decline of traditional values of hard work amongst millennials and the even younger Gen Z crowd as you or I would. He's instead using this for his own purposes. Lower your expectations. You will own nothing, and you will be happy, as the World Economic Forum's Great Reset promises us, as they take money from the middle class and move it upward. Even more eerily, the president of the world's largest asset management company, BlackRock, is using the same talking points to ease the public into accepting a decline in material well-being as well. BlackRock co-founder and president Robert Kapito said that supply chain issues and inflation are causing scarcity among commodities we've taken for granted. But instead of saying that it's the result of failures from neoliberalism and the neocons, Kapito instead pulled a Biden and got mad at people for noticing what's happening to them. He said, quote, "For the first time, this generation is going to go into a store and not be able to get what they want. We have a very entitled generation that has never had to sacrifice," end quote. Remember, this isn't just anyone talking about scarcity. BlackRock handles trillions of dollars in assets, has a number of ties directly to the Biden White House, and can force the arms of major companies like Walmart into adopting their left-wing agenda, such as removing certain guns from sale or promoting gay pride in stores. Here's BlackRock CEO, billionaire Larry Fink, a few years ago explaining.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Joining me now to discuss is Saurabh Sharma, the president of American Moment. Thanks for being here tonight, Saurabh.
Glad to be here, Kara.
Great. So you heard my thoughts. So I want to know what you think, why we're seeing these talking points about sacrifice and scarcity and flippant remarks about young people just not wanting to own anything from these global elites. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's very clear that the people who are going to have to sacrifice are young people. The people who brought us to this moment, they don't have to sacrifice anything. If you think about the kind of life that a millennial or member of Gen Z has had to live, it's essentially bookended by one of their first memories of a big news event being the 2008 financial crisis created by our financial elites, and then the COVID lockdowns created by our public health elites. And so why is it that the exact same class of people that brought us to national disaster in both cases, in some cases international disaster, they're never the ones who have to sacrifice or give up anything? It's ordinary working class Americans that do. That's my first issue with it. The second is the material concerns that are completely elided in these conversations. That smarmy Canadian executive over there, he was saying that millennials don't really want to buy homes. They don't want that responsibility. Well, why would they? After living in such a chaotic world for the last decade, the chaos, the instability, and the inconsistency in day-to-day life that our ruling class implements in public policy is part of the reason why millennials don't feel the cultural desire to settle down in the way that elder generations did.
And also, I think, Republicans are making a lot of headway on messaging when it comes to calling what the left's indoctrination in schools is grooming. But I think another thing that they really need to start honing, given what we're talking about right now, is this idea that we need to return to an economy in which people can own a home and raise a family and do these things on a single income, because right now for a lot of young people that's pretty much out of grasp. Do you think that that's really something Republicans need to hone on economically, return to the single income family household?
Absolutely, Kara. And we have this cult of GDP worship in the United States. It's in both parties, especially in the Republican Party, frankly. And you think about the way that GDP has grown over the last couple of decades, a big chunk of it has just been a process by which women or men, depending on which parent was staying in the home taking care of the children, they go to the workforce along with the other parent, and they pay someone for daycare to take care of the children that they bore. You've created a whole lot of quote unquote value in that process, in the process of paying for daycare and in that person going to work. But have you really improved the material conditions of the American economy? Do we actually make things here anymore? Do we actually have goods and services that are unique to the United States? No, it's paper growth in service of real declines in the American dream. And we should have the audacity on the right and on the left to ask for more from this economy. And we're hoping that as Republicans realize that corporate America is not their friend, they'll start to do that.
A lot of young people right now feel trapped by the gig economy. I know the gig economy can be great in some ways, flexible hours, work when you want. But when that's all you've got, when you can't find a salaried, 40-hour-a-week position, things get pretty difficult. As you were saying, a lot of our manufacturing, a lot of those good jobs we've outsourced over many decades now. But even if you do find a good job here in America, let's say a nice white-collar financial or tech job, there's no guarantee you can keep it. A lot of these big tech companies, they fire their middle-class workers and instead import in new foreign workers. We see right now over 11 million openings right now in America, and instead of raising wages in from some companies, instead they're saying, government, please bring in more people. So we see the DHS just last week saying over 30,000 new H-2B visas will be allowed on top of, all the everything else that they brought in with more visa expansions in the past year or two since COVID-19 and the government shutdowns. What does that mean for American workers?
Immigration is one of the greatest scams that's perpetrated on the American people through public policy. We've, for the last 50 years, engaged in a world historic experiment. We can do mass immigration for decades and decades, and it'll only redound to American consumers' benefits because prices are going down. Well, that's been a lie. And there's two kind of twin lies that undergird this system, right? On the low-skill immigration end, they say, well, these are jobs that Americans just won't do, whether it's agricultural jobs or service sector jobs. And the truth is that the sentence is incomplete. Yes, those are jobs Americans won't do at that very low wage. And so if you tighten the labor market on the low end, you'll create wage growth for Americans. And we saw that for the first time during the Trump administration because of his restrictive policies on illegal immigration. But let's not forget the scam that's played on the high end. we'll have a college system in the United States here where, because of affirmative action, because of diversity, inclusion, and equity, i.e. DIE, we prevent talented young people from getting the STEM education that they need. We fund these advocacy disciplines like women and gender studies and race studies, and then we complain that there aren't enough tech workers, and so we import them from abroad, and we tell those farmers that we have unemployed or those coal miners that we've unemployed that they should learn to code. It's one big scam, and we should stop letting the media, the government, and corporate America gaslight us into importing millions of foreign workers every year when we have 330 million people, many of whom are looking for work and who are quite smart, quite capable, and the primary responsibility of policymakers is to look after their interests.
Saurabh, that's exactly right. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Kara.